It is Friday evening, and two coworkers are walking out of the same office building after finishing the exact same shift. Both of them are mentally exhausted. Both spent the entire week sitting in meetings, answering emails, solving problems, dealing with pressure, and watching the clock count down toward payday. As they head toward the parking garage, the first person pulls out their phone before even reaching the elevator. Within minutes, they are scrolling through shopping apps, ordering expensive takeout, and convincing themselves to finance a brand new phone because they deserve something nice after such a stressful week. The second person feels the exact same exhaustion. They also want comfort. They also feel burned out. But when their paycheck hits later that night, they automatically move part of the money into investments and savings before touching anything else. Then they go home, cook dinner, and spend the rest of the evening learning a skill that could increase their income later. At first, these two people do not look dramatically different. They may earn similar salaries, they may wear similar clothes, they may even drive similar cars. But financially, they are moving toward completely different lives. That is how the separation between poor and wealthy people usually begins. Not through one giant opportunity, not through luck overnight, not through some secret investment strategy that only rich people understand. Most of the time, the separation starts quietly through repeated behavior. Small financial decisions slowly become habits. Habits become routines. Routines become lifestyles. And lifestyles eventually create outcomes people mistake for luck years later. Most people believe wealth begins with a larger paycheck. They imagine that once someone earns six figures, financial stress disappears automatically. But reality proves something very different every single day. There are professional athletes who lose millions. There are celebrities who file for bankruptcy after earning more money in a few years than most people will see in a lifetime. There are doctors, lawyers, engineers, and executives earning massive incomes while still living paycheck to paycheck because their financial habits never changed as their income increased. At the exact same time, there are ordinary workers quietly building retirement accounts, purchasing investments every month, living below their means, and slowly creating stability without anyone noticing. That is because income alone does not create wealth. Behavior creates wealth. A larger paycheck can improve someone's lifestyle while doing absolutely nothing for their financial future. That is why so many people receive raises while still feeling trapped financially. Their spending expands every single time their income grows. The apartment gets upgraded. The car payment increases. Shopping habits become more expensive. More subscriptions appear. More convenience spending becomes normal. More lifestyle pressure quietly builds underneath the surface. From the outside, it looks like progress. Internally, the pressure never leaves. This is one of the clearest differences between poor and wealthy financial habits. Poor financial habits usually focus on emotional comfort and visible success in the present moment. Wealthy financial habits focus on stability, ownership, and long-term flexibility. One person sees extra money and immediately thinks about upgrading their lifestyle. The other sees extra money and thinks about increasing investments, reducing debt, building emergency savings, and strengthening their future position. That difference becomes enormous over time because wealthy people tend to understand something many financially struggling people never fully realize. Ownership changes the direction of money. Most people only experience money leaving them. Rent leaves, bills leave, interest payments leave, credit card balances grow. Unexpected expenses appear constantly. Every paycheck feels temporary because the money disappears almost immediately after arriving. Wealthy people eventually reach a stage where assets begin sending money back toward them. Investments appreciate quietly. Dividends appear. Retirement accounts compound. Businesses generate income. For the first time, money begins working alongside them instead of demanding constant labor every single day. That experience changes people psychologically. Someone who has only known financial survival usually develops short-term thinking because survival mode forces people to focus on immediate problems. When someone constantly worries about overdue bills, overdraft fees, debt collectors, rising rent, or emergencies, it becomes difficult to think strategically about the next 10 years. Stress shortens perspective. Immediate relief becomes emotionally louder than long-term planning. That is why emotional spending becomes so common. People spend because they feel exhausted. They spend because they feel behind in life. They spend because buying something provides temporary relief after carrying stress all week long. Modern companies understand this perfectly. That is why spending money has become easier than ever before. Years ago, people physically handed over cash and watched money disappear from their wallet. Today, spending feels almost invisible. You tap your phone. You split purchases into installments. You finance products you technically cannot afford. You subscribe to services without noticing the money leaving your account each month. People stop thinking in totals and start thinking in monthly payments. Instead of asking, how much does this actually cost? They ask, can I afford the payment? Those are completely different questions, and they create completely different futures. Wealthy people usually approach spending differently. They ask themselves what a purchase will cost them long term, rather than only focusing on the excitement of today. A luxury vehicle is not simply a luxury vehicle to them. It represents insurance costs, maintenance expenses, depreciation, registration fees, interest payments, and reduced flexibility. That does not mean wealthy people never enjoy expensive things. It means they understand that every financial decision carries consequences beyond the emotional excitement of buying it. One of the hardest parts about building wealth is that discipline looks boring in the beginning. Nobody congratulates someone for contributing to index funds every month. Nobody notices when someone avoids unnecessary debt. Nobody applauds the quiet sacrifice behind delayed gratification. In fact, the spender often appears more successful early on. They have the luxury apartment, expensive clothes, vacations, designer purchases, and the financed car sitting in the driveway. Meanwhile, the disciplined person can look completely average for years. But time changes everything. The person quietly building wealth eventually gains momentum. Investments begin compounding. Debt shrinks. Financial pressure decreases. Opportunities increase. Over time, they reach a point where emergencies no longer create panic. That emotional shift matters more than people realize. The first time someone handles a major expense calmly, without fear, something changes internally. They breathe differently. They sleep differently. Stability creates emotional space, and emotional space improves decision-making. This is why financially stable people often move differently through life. They negotiate differently because desperation no longer controls every decision. They tolerate less disrespect because they are not terrified of losing every paycheck. They think further into the future because survival no longer consumes all of their mental energy. Wealthy people understand something most people discover too late. Money is not only about luxury. It is about reducing fear. That is why wealthy people protect stability aggressively. They build emergency funds. They invest consistently. They think carefully about risk. They insure important assets. They create financial buffers because they understand how quickly chaos can erase years of progress. Poor financial habits often assume tomorrow will somehow work itself out. Wealth-building habits prepare before problems arrive. One of the biggest financial traps today is lifestyle inflation. This quietly destroys progress for millions of people every single year. Someone finally starts earning more money and immediately upgrades every part of their life. They move into a larger apartment. They buy a more expensive vehicle. They increase shopping habits. They normalize luxury purchases they previously could not afford. Suddenly, the higher income disappears into higher expenses. Their paycheck grows, but their financial pressure stays exactly the same. Sometimes it becomes worse because now they must maintain an expensive image just to preserve appearances. That creates a fragile lifestyle. Fragile lifestyles collapse quickly during difficult seasons. A layoff, emergency, recession, or medical issue suddenly becomes devastating because the entire financial structure depended on constant income to survive. Real wealth is not measured by how expensive your life looks online. Real wealth is measured by how stable your life remains when problems show up. Social media has confused many people about what financial success actually looks like. Someone driving a luxury car may secretly be drowning in debt. Someone living modestly may quietly own hundreds of thousands of dollars in investments. Real wealth and visible wealth are often completely different things. The wealthy eventually stop obsessing over looking rich because real financial confidence reduces the need for validation. Once someone experiences genuine stability, they begin valuing peace more than appearances. Being able to survive emergencies calmly has value. Being able to leave a toxic workplace has value. Being able to rest without panic has value. Those are the things wealth truly changes. This is where the identity shift happens. Financial discipline slowly changes how people see themselves. Someone who invests consistently begins viewing themselves as a person who plans ahead. Someone who controls emotional spending starts seeing themselves as disciplined instead of impulsive. Progress creates confidence, and confidence reinforces better behavior. That is why small financial wins matter psychologically. Paying off one debt matters. Building one emergency fund matters. Making your first investment matters. Every small victory changes identity little by little. Many people underestimate how deeply financial instability affects emotions. Constant money stress affects relationships, confidence, sleep, and decision-making. Someone trapped financially often lives with invisible mental pressure every single day. They check their bank account before buying groceries. They panic over unexpected expenses. They avoid looking at debt balances because the numbers feel overwhelming. That constant stress changes behavior over time. People become reactive instead of strategic. They begin focusing only on surviving the month instead of building the future. This is why wealthy people think differently about time. Poor financial habits usually prioritize immediate comfort, while wealthy financial habits prioritize future freedom. Someone financially disciplined may sacrifice convenience temporarily in order to create an easier life years later. They understand that short-term discipline creates long-term flexibility. Meanwhile, financially destructive behavior often prioritizes emotional relief right now, regardless of future consequences. This becomes especially important when discussing compounding. Most people dramatically underestimate how powerful compounding becomes over long periods of time. Someone investing a few $100s consistently every month may not feel wealthy immediately. For years, progress can feel painfully slow. That is where many people quit. They expect dramatic change too quickly. But compounding behaves differently once momentum builds. Investments begin growing on top of previous growth. Time starts amplifying consistency. Eventually, wealth building accelerates faster than people expect. The problem is that modern culture trains people to expect immediate results. Fast success, fast money, fast transformations. But sustainable wealth is usually slow in the beginning. It requires patience before visible rewards appear. That patience is emotionally difficult because nobody celebrates invisible progress. Social media celebrates visible consumption instead. Expensive vacations get attention. Luxury purchases get attention. Quiet investing does not. That is why financially disciplined people often look less impressive during the early years. But years later, the results become impossible to ignore. The disciplined person owns assets. They have flexibility. They have reduced stress. They have options. Meanwhile, the person who spent years financing appearances may still be trapped by debt, pressure, and constant anxiety. The wealthy also think carefully about increasing earning potential over time. They invest in skills, education, networking, businesses, and opportunities that can expand future income. Poor financial habits often focus heavily on increasing consumption instead. Wealth-building habits focus on increasing value creation. That difference matters because income growth combined with disciplined behavior creates enormous long-term advantages. Eventually, wealthy people stop thinking about money only as something to spend. They begin thinking about money as a tool that creates freedom, time, leverage, and opportunity. That mindset changes behavior permanently. They stop trying to impress strangers. They stop chasing validation through purchases. They become more intentional about where money goes because they understand every financial decision affects future flexibility. At the end of the day, the difference between poor and wealthy people is often hidden inside daily behavior. The wealthy are not always smarter. They are not always more talented. Many simply developed habits that prioritize ownership, preparation, patience, and long-term thinking. Meanwhile, financially destructive habits prioritize appearances, emotional relief, and immediate gratification. And over time, those repeated behaviors create two completely different lives. One person spends years trying to look wealthy. The other quietly builds a life where money no longer controls every decision they make.